The Tombstone of Robert Lucas Pearsall. This stone shouldn't really be here. It wasn't designed for this church and only arrived in Bitton in 2012. The man it commemorates, Robert Lucas Pearsall, is not buried in this church either, but lies in a churchyard in Switzerland where he died in 1856. Pearsall was a musician, a composer and a very fine one, even though he was trained and practised for a short time as a lawyer in Bristol. His family had an iron-making business and a house in Willsbridge, then, as now, part of the parish. When Henry Ellicombe arrived in Bitton in 1817 as the new curate, he quickly became friends with Pearsall. They were men of similar age and views. They shared an interest in medieval history and the revival of ancient rites and practices in worship. They also enjoyed music, both at home and in the church, for which Pearsall is reported to have written hymns and chants for the choir to sing. Unfortunately, much of Pearsall's music for this church has been lost. But if you think you are unfamiliar with Pearsall's music, you may recognise his setting of In Dulce Jubilo, a regular item in the 9 lessons and carols broadcast each year on Christmas Eve from King's College, Cambridge. He was, however, no amateur composer, and although he had a private income, he was the author of a wide range of music of many different varieties and forms. He was a founder member of the Bristol Madrigal Society and is largely responsible for the revival of the madrigal itself as a musical form, having been largely lost since the Middle Ages. Pearsall suffered from poor health for much of his life. Having had a stroke at the age of only 30, he was advised to live abroad. As a result, he lived much of the rest of his life in what is now southern Germany, Austria and Switzerland. He continued to return to England frequently, often for extended periods, and kept up an extensive correspondence with Ellicombe. Following the death of his mother in 1837, he sold the family home, although he continued to claim a link to Willsbridge and can be seen by the writing on his tombstone. With his new inheritance, he donated money to this church, funding a new pulpit and the cover to the font. The money also enabled him to settle more permanently in Switzerland, and he purchased a castle, the Schloss Wartensee, where he lived for nearly 20 years, continuing to compose. When he died, he was entombed in its chapel under this stone. Unfortunately, the Pearsall family were not able to maintain the castle after his death, and it was sold in 1858, becoming home to an order of Franciscan nuns. In 1955, the castle was bought by a Swiss evangelical organisation who deconsecrated the chapel and used it as a refectory. At the deconsecration, Pearsall's remains were exhumed and reburied in a local churchyard. The tombstone was removed from the castle and stored in a shed close by. There it lay for more than 50 years, before being offered to the monastery at Einsiedeln, which holds an archive of Pearsall's works, but the religious community was unable to offer it a permanent home. Discovering that the tombstone of one of its founders was without a permanent location, the Bristol Chamber Choir, the successor to the Bristol Madrigal Society, approached St Mary's Church and asked if the church would be able to house it. The vicar and the parochial church council consented, on the understanding that the cost of bringing the stone to England would not be met from church funds. The Bristol Chamber Choir agreed to meet the cost, and the stone was transported from Switzerland to England, arriving in Bitton on the 22nd of May 2012, coinciding by chance with the passage through the village of the torch for the 2012 Olympic Games. Originally intended to be displayed in the churchyard, its design proved inappropriate for the English climate, and it was brought into the porch where it sits in a specially designed cradle. If you would like to know more about Pearsall, there is a small booklet in the church you can purchase. You can also find more information and a list of his recorded works on our website.